ransomware within dental and cybersecurity are a big thing. That's nothing new. That's been going on for years. It's always been a soft target for cyber criminals because they know there's underinvestment in the space. And it's a treasure trove of information. Much easier to breach a dental service organization who may have several 100,000 records of patient data than going to try to breach a hospital who probably has a much larger IT budget and IT spend to protect against that. So that's the horror story that comes up.
Hey there, dental economist. If you're a dentist owner or a leader within a dental business thinking about growing production, case acceptance, patient and staff satisfaction, positive outcomes, and everything else that comes with running a dental business, then you're a dental economist, and you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Dental Economist Show. We're meeting at the intersection of profit and purpose as I sit down with dental leaders who share their stories about dentistry, business, and growth. Welcome back to the Dental Economist Show with me, Mike Huffaker. Before we dive into today's episode, just a quick reminder, if you would be so kind, if you are listening to the show and enjoying the show, if you could like, subscribe, leave a review wherever you consume your podcasts. It really goes a long way in helping us continue to bring practical insights and expert voices to dental professionals like you. With that, I am excited to be joined today by Tom Barberio, the Chief Information Officer at Thinc Forward, an MSP and MSSP serving clients across North America. With over 20 years experience in cybersecurity and IT strategy, Tom has worked across the dental, medical, financial, and pharmaceutical sectors, including several Fortune 100 and 500 companies. At Thinc Forward, Tom has been instrumental in designing and scaling their security-first offerings, while also helping DSOs and healthcare organizations navigate complex cybersecurity challenges. Tom, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Good to see you again. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you over the past couple of years. I know we've got a lot of mutual customers. And, before we even started this episode, I was asking how long you'd been with Thinc Forward. It's coming up on 13 plus years. I'd be curious, lots changed in dental. It feels like maybe we're at this inflection point from a technology perspective where things are accelerating even faster. But can you give a little context of when you think back over that time? You've been working with DSOs for quite a while. What's different with the landscape? What are some of the most important changes that have been taking place?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. Thanks for bringing that up. So when I first started working with DSOs about 18, 20 years ago, when DSOs first started and became a thing, they were so far behind the times in technology. Healthcare was usually, we used to say, was 7 to 8 years behind the curve. And then dental was another 6 to 7 years behind that. So you'd be surprised when we first started this. Technology was not a driver. It was more of a necessity and an afterthought. So it was something like, hey, I know I have to have computers. I might be going to practice management systems, coming off of paper, going to digital radiography, things of that nature. Then about the last 5 to 6 years, and more so actually post-COVID, we really started to see now technology has become a technology-first platform, particularly with DSOs, saying, how can I enable technology that actually helps me enable my business? Not just be a cost center, let's be a cost driver, improve the patient experience, utilize technology to really be able to improve that experience for those patients because they come to expect it. It's become generational.
I love that mentality shift, and I agree completely with that. I've got a bit of a bone to pick with IT providers, MSPs out there in the industry in general. I know that you're not like this because we've communicated with each other so often. But when I look at the landscape, you just mentioned this entire shift with the way that people are looking at it, technology first, all these advancements. One thing that we come across often are still providers that seem to offer guidance that is solely driven to maximize their own business benefit, which is not necessarily what's best for the dental groups, organizations, providers, or patients. What do you see out there, and how did you all make the shift to supporting modern dental practices with their needs, which oftentimes include cloud software? And how did you have to change your business model a little bit in order to properly support that, where you didn't need to hold folks back in order to still run a successful business?
That's a great question. So we typically see in the space that there's a lot of what you would call your basic bread and butter IT MSPs. There's a lot, like hundreds and thousands out there. I need my printer fixed. I need my monitor fixed. But a lot of IT providers don't understand the dental space. It is quite unique. It's something we actually call dental IT. So it takes kind of a unique skill set and understanding and training of those employees to really be able to support a dental practice, and particularly support a dental support organization like a DSO, because they have unique needs. So when we kind of came into the space, we built a different model than saying, hey, we just want to be the guy repairs the computer, sells you the hardware on it, right? Because that becomes an impediment. So we said, we're going to take a different approach and really invest in saying, we're going to make our IT support staff be dental IT support specialists. So what does that actually mean? Hey, they need to be trained in practice management. They need to be trained in digital radiography, because most IT people don't even know where to plug a sensor in, how does it work, and what's the intricacies and things like that behind it. So making that shift them is really important. And to be honest with you, it's tough because you still see as DSOs grow, so they buy a single DSO, the doc may be like, hey, I've known my IT guy for 40 years and he's a patient of mine, right? And he's probably a great IT guy, right? But he doesn't understand the needs of dental DSOs. So when I talk to our DSO customers, prospects in ecosystems like Planet TDS, things like that, I try to explain to them, hey, you need to look more holistically, that someone's a specialist in the space versus a generalist. And we find that makes a real key difference.
Taking the software technology innovation piece out of it and thinking more about the infrastructure within a dental practice or across a dental organization from a hardware and networking perspective. One thing I hear is oftentimes there's acquisitions that take place, a practice is acquired. My goodness, we need all new computers. We need a new server. We need to do new networking. This is not great. This is at a bad spot. It's really preventing the ability to take advantage of some of the new innovation that's out there in the market today. What's your guidance if you have a dental group or a dental organization as far as what the expectation should be regarding recurrent investment in upgrading workstations and upgrading servers and upgrading different elements of your network, your router, your wireless access points, you name it. There's so many different components that I feel like oftentimes they end up being neglected. And if you were able to continue to maintain consistently over time versus sticking your head in the sand and going like, we'll deal with all of it later, it wouldn't be such a one-time outlier or one-time cost. What's the right way to think about it in order to make it more digestible consistently over time?
That's a really great question, right? So we have a term in the industry we like to call technical debt, kind of a fancy term, because typically, as I mentioned, IT spend and hardware spend becomes a secondary thing. Usually there's only so many dollars that go so far. So you say, well, I want to go buy the new fancy 3D printer or new fancy 3D scanner because I'm going to get more ROI out of that in the practice. What we're starting to see though now is that what everyone forgets is all of these pieces interact with each other. So if you have not invested in your core network and you're not running proper things within that practice, those cool toys and add-ons and things like that will not work properly. So when I'm talking to customers and people, I say, nobody's got millions of dollars lying around so that they want to go spend on computers and IT stuff generally. So I typically say, you got to compartmentalize it and you got to start blocking and tackling it. You got to do a little bit each quarter, a little bit each year, and you need to plan. One of the big things right now that's in the space seems kind of simple, but people got caught by surprise is that you'd be surprised how many practices still run Windows 10. Everybody understands that coming up in October, that's now going to become a HIPAA and a compliance issue because it's no longer going to receive security updates from Microsoft. So we've seen a lot of spend in fiscal year 25 of, okay, I got to upgrade my computers now because they're 8 years old and may not work with Windows 11. But what we try to get everybody in, especially the customers when they go through budget cycles and things like that, to say, you don't need to go spend $1 million right now. Let's compartmentalize it and build a plan. Let's spend 50 grand a quarter, 60 grand a quarter, whatever it may be, whatever the numbers are, to kind of spread that out. And that's important because then you stay up with it and you keep your ecosystem in a spot where you can then do those additional add-ons you want to do, whether it be with AI or integrating in the cloud-based platforms. Because even with cloud-based platforms, you still need some fairly decent hardware to be able to do things for, implant planning and heavy graphics and things like that.
I'm sure you probably have some horror stories over the years of seeing things go terribly wrong on the IT side within different organizations and the negative impact that can have on a dental practice. What are some of those that you've seen? Maybe share a story or two of some particularly unfortunate events that transpired either because of IT neglect or maybe even, there wasn't IT neglect. They were trying to stay on top of things, but there's just things that are really hard to protect against because of staff or other reasons.
If you're not investing in security, we all know there's been several podcasts on it. I think we talked about it in the past too. Ransomware within dental and cybersecurity are a big thing. I mean, that's nothing new. That's been going on for years. It's always been a soft target for cyber criminals because they know there's underinvestment in the space. And it's a treasure trove of information. Much easier to breach a dental service organization who may have several 100,000 records of patient data than going to try to breach a hospital, who probably has a much larger IT budget and IT spend to protect against that. So that's the horror story that comes up. Rather than a horror story, I kind of look at it as it becomes an impediment, right? Because we see all these newer technologies that are coming out into the space, 3D printing, AI, agnostic AI, things that really can enable the business and be a patient driver and a revenue driver for practices. And then they're like, oh, I want to put this in, but then they get the dreaded, IT said no, or my IT is not up to date to be able to handle this. And that it impedes rollout schedules, particularly in multi-site. So it becomes really important that if you build that foundation and the road pretty solid, it becomes a lot easier to stack on those things on top of it.
Do you think dental takes security as seriously as other industries? You have experience across many different verticals, and for whatever reason, I still get the sense, and it's not isolated to independent practices, it's not isolated to emerging DSOs or to groups, it's really on a case-by-case basis, but that there's a higher likelihood of people sharing passwords, of people using the same login for different individuals. Maybe they're trying to save money on concurrent license costs or something, and using software that might no longer be supported by the original vendor. Just a whole list of no-nos that maybe aren't always taken as seriously. I'm not sure if that resonates at all, or if it does, why that would be.
Again, I think it comes down to you're right. I would say that the education in this space has gotten better over the last few years, but it's still very rampant because I think it becomes a prioritization task because you get in operations, particularly within a dental practice, is doctor satisfaction, patient satisfaction, operational excellence is always the number one driver. So when you start to get into the more costly items or things that kind of run the engine, such as IT security, which is super important because people don't realize it till it's a problem. You come in and you're got 30 offices and you're going to be down for 4 weeks. It's a big problem. And trust me, I've seen it happen. You had to close the doors because of ransomware instances and things like that. Even with all the education out there, I do find in this particular vertical that it still is somewhat of a secondary thought and not on the forefront. I think with all the press recently and things that have happened in previous years, more people are open to it, but you have to have a champion. If the customer doesn't have a champion of who's pushing it, it kind of gets pushed by the wayside. You've got a strong IT presence, strong IT leadership, strong people who understand it. I think people will be willing to listen and take appropriate action, but it's all about the education.
The education is a great call out. I do think that there had in the past perhaps been more of a thought like, well, it's probably not going to happen to me. But I think that notion is changing as there's more and more examples that have become more and more public, and people understand that maybe no target is too small these days for some of these folks. So you've worked with a number of clients rolling out practice management software, many that are rolling out our products, and many people that are rolling out other software in general that want to take advantage of some of the new AI tools. Maybe it's AI radiography, maybe it's AI phone systems, or they're looking to implement patient engagement software. What are some of the pitfalls that you think people should be aware of to try to avoid prior to making any large-scale software rollout commitments?
If you were to poll the vendor environment, even outside of PMS, everybody says, we use AI. AI is one of those buzzwords, and you really say, well, what is it? So it's funny, you go to a dental show or whatnot and say there's 300 vendors there. I get you 290 of those 300 are going to say, hey, we're doing this new stuff with AI. And I say, I love it, but what are you actually doing with AI? So I always encourage customers, same thing where we work partnership with BDSO. A lot of your guys' customers would say, what are your goals? If you could set out the goals, there probably is a product out there that will do that, whether it be AI on the clinical side in digital radiography, whether it's AI for customer satisfaction in phone systems and contact center, customer engagement center are kind of the new term. We're also seeing a big push now for AI automations in back office function, revenue cycle management, operations management, scheduling, smart scheduling, things of that nature. So I always say you got to make a list of where are your priorities, because there's not one solution that fits all. You're not going to say, hey, I'm going to go spend X amount of money. I'm going to go buy an AI solution and it's going to fit all of my AI needs and wants. There's no magic product today in the market that does that. And to be honest with you, I don't think anytime in the foreseeable future there really will be, because it's very niche. So I think you have to look and say, well, where can I use AI to augment what I'm doing, and where's my priorities? And then you could start to look through the vendor ecosystem and say, these guys do this great. These guys are okay. These guys don't really do anything that meets my needs at all. And then it's a lot easier to bifurcate down that list, and you'll go from a plethora of people probably down to a handful of products that really meet the needs for what you're trying to accomplish.
When an implementation or adoption of a new tool fails, what are the reasons for that?
That is usually has to do with the expectation setting and the planning. So we talk a lot about this becomes real particular where there's usually a champion within the organization. You say, hey, I want this tool. It's going to do X, and yay, let's go do it. We might go spend a lot of money as a customer, go roll it out, and then we roll the first 5 sites out or the first 2 sites and it goes horribly wrong. It's typically because one of 3 things didn't happen. The tool that was chosen was not properly vetted. And when I say that is vetting is not a one person sole source type of job. If in a dental support organization, you usually have multiple departments or areas, right? You have people that focus on front office, people that focus on back office, and then people that focus exclusively on clinical. And if all 3 of those sub areas are not really brought together during the vetting of the product, it may not meet the expectations of what the organization is trying to do. So then when that gets rolled out, it probably could fall short in 1 or 2 or even all 3 of those areas if everybody wasn't involved. The other thing is let's say everybody is involved and we do it, you'd be surprised. It comes back to the same thing with the planning stage of just how technology is behind, just some basic block and tackling of how are you testing this? How are you rolling it out? We tend to see sometimes people will go a little too big, too fast versus really taking that diligence to plan it, saying, hey, I'm going to roll this out in 2 weeks versus say, well, maybe I should take 3 to plan and then do it. And it will help avoid that failure, because the number one kiss of death for a product, or actually as for credibility, is if you go to roll something out or travels fast, you put it in a couple offices, it fails miserably. Now, everybody in the organization, you maybe never even saw the product, is like, that's horrible, I don't want it. And it might be nothing wrong with the product. It could be something as simple as, okay, it wasn't communicated or it just wasn't planned properly during the implementation. And then that really hurts the broader adoption of the users of wanting to use that product.
I don't know if there's a good answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So if you're a DSO or an independent practice and you have an IT service provider, maybe there's a couple different ways to frame this, and you're looking at your IT spend, what is likely in there that you don't necessarily need to be investing or spending on? And what are you maybe missing that you should be investing and spending more? And maybe just a different way of framing it is just from your experience, where do people overinvest in IT services? Are there services that people are paying for that are not as helpful as they would hope that they were? And are there things that are missed frequently? And if it's a bad question, there's no answer to this, totally we can move on. But I just thought that there might be some other way of looking at what is provided from an IT perspective that people are missing.
I think the biggest way to answer that question is we typically tend to see product sprawl. And that actually happens even in a solo office. You'd be surprised where I'll go into a solo office. Hey, I'm using this one little feature and one little feature of this product and one of the third. And they're really paying 3 times essentially for the same thing, because they don't realize that, hey, I could maybe get 98% of what I want if I consolidate it down to just this one. Guys, you're paying 5 times for the same thing. And also, the stuff's not even being used anymore. There might be products that someone put on a credit card or bought 4 years ago, used it for a couple months, didn't realize they never canceled it. And then you multiply that out times a yearly fee in doing it. I mean, could be talking thousands and thousands of dollars per location. And in some cases, we've been seen even on a per monthly basis. I mean, it comes out to big dollars. So, and then also efficiency of just streamlining practices, particularly in the group practices. We see this a lot where they may not consolidate their MSP services. They may not consolidate their IT. So if you've got 60, 70, 80 practices, sometimes we find they have 40 or 50 IT vendors. That becomes harder down the road.
So now if a group comes and they're looking for MSP IT services, what are the services that they should be contemplating to help support the success of their practices?
They really should be looking at what security offerings are being offered for those services and what are those IT services including? Is it basic IT or is it actually going to provide dental IT services? And the dental IT services is going to be more beneficial to them in the long run from a cost, because that's typically where the frustration lies and also where lost revenue can occur. X-ray sensors not working or a pan's not working or a piece of equipment in that office, that's lost chair time and revenue or a bad patient experience versus it's, like I said, very simple to get somebody to fix a TV or fix a monitor, right? It's those more dental specific pieces of technology that are important. And even with a lot of things in the cloud, I hear all the time, well, I have all my stuff in the cloud. Why do I care? But what everybody fails to understand is that you still have to run the technology to be able to utilize that services in the cloud. And that's a big thing. And with the Internet of Things, you walk into a dental office now, it's no longer just the computer, the printer, and maybe the TV that's on the Wi-Fi. Your sterilizers on the Wi-Fi, in some case, the dental chair, the dental equipment, the 3D scanners, everything.
That's right. What could somebody expect to look different from an IT services perspective if they are moving from server-based solutions to cloud solutions in their practice?
We get this question quite a bit, is that the hardware refresh cycle changes when you move from a server-based solution to a cloud-based solution. You're going to get a lot further on your tech stack when you go to a cloud-based solution, because the amount of compute and the type of resources you need on that becomes significantly less within the practice itself. So a computer that on a server-based solution, you say, well, I had to replace that when it hit 4 years because it's just running too slow. It can't connect to the server. Now, if I'm doing more cloud-based stuff, I may be able to stretch that hardware to 5, 6, 7 years, right? At some point, it's a loss leader and it's got to be replaced. But the cloud, what the advent of the cloud services has been really good is that it's actually taken a lot of that ancillary spend and it's shifted it. So you don't have to invest so much in the physical items as you do. You can move those dollars over into the licensing costs and things of that nature that inherently come with cloud. And something that people don't realize, and I run into DSOs all the time, we have a mixed audience here, is that people say, well, the CapEx, OpEx conversation, right? It used to always be, I would buy it, it's a one-time fee, I'll then depreciate it in my accounting over the next 5 to 7 years. What people don't realize now is that 3-4 years ago, there was a shift in the model. And I tell people, I'm not a CFO, go talk to your accounting groups. You can actually now classify some of your cloud expense. It can be CapEx expense, depending on how you're purchasing it and things like that. So a lot of larger mid-size and larger groups now are starting to do that to say, oh, I can move that expense around and it's not hitting my operating budget. That was a big change that's really pushed a lot of people to make cloud more attractive to people, in addition to the other things that come along with cloud, is because of that, because now they can reclassify those dollars the way that they were more historically able to do that in a more server-based.
And what would you say the pros and cons are from a security posture perspective for moving into cloud solutions versus server-based?
The first thing that comes to mind, it's bad news for the providers because you're shifting the onus. So when you go to a cloud-based thing as a DSO or a solo practice, if I'm going to a cloud-based solution, you're then shifting that onus of security onto that, which is great because it helps your insurance, your cyber insurance, all of that. So those providers have probably much more budget in dollars invested that to be able to handle that security because they're doing it on such a wide scale. Con is you get some people that say, well, then I'm at the mercy of that provider to be able to do something, and you do lose some of the control. But to be honest with you, what we see in the landscape now, I'm more of the fan of let the people who got the budget to do it to be able to handle it better. It's going to be more beneficial to the end users by doing that ownership than having to take on that expense themselves.
Now, last question, Tom. You've been in dental and around dental for a long time now. When you just look at the industry as a whole, what makes you bullish on the future of dental?
I would say the advent of the technology that's actually coming. I'm really happy to see that there's been that paradigm shift where dental technology now has become to the forefront. Hey, this is really a patient enabler and a practice enabler versus a hindrance and a cost. So that's really allowing the innovation to really spark. We've seen more advances in AI and automation and things like that coming across in the last 18 to 24 months because people really want to use these technologies and use this stuff to be able to enable themselves more. So that keeps me super excited because it went from, IT is just to keep the lights on and run the shop type of a thing versus, hey, IT now can be a enabler and really be, how do we attract new patients and be able to do more new and exciting things.
Hey, Tom, thank you so much for joining. How can people find you? How can people find Thinc Forward?
Absolutely. So, Mike, I appreciate you having me on. They could go to our website. It's www.thinckforward.com with a C, ThincForward. And they actually, right on the website, there's a contact us link, or people can look me up on LinkedIn. I have a lot of conversations. Be happy to connect with any of your viewers and listeners here to talk about things further.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
The Dental Economist Show is brought to you by Planet DDS, home of Dental OS. To find out more about how cloud-based dental software by Planet DDS helps unleash dentists and their staff to focus on patient care, visit www.planetdds.com. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes by following wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you for listening.